Please support Vlad Nerd. Thank you. You know, I already know what's gonna happen after this video. Some people will call me a shill. Vlad, how dare you say things that are opposed to what I think? Some people will call me a sellout. Some people will simply hate on me. But you know what? I don't care. Part of this channel is me being able to talk exactly what I think is right and convey exactly the message that I want to convey to you fine people. And the message that I have is that I'm disappointed. I'm not disappointed in you specifically, the viewer that watches me, but I'm disappointed in our community. You see, my dear nerds, we were supposed to be a good community, a tight-knit community, an adult community, because based on demographics, most of us are all over 30 years old. And we have no excuse to be childish by this point, but that's what we were. That's why we can't have nice things. I'm kind of talking about the whole situation with Retroid. You know by now, my previous video was about this. I talked about how Retroid kind of messed up with the Retroid Pocket Mini with the fact that the screen scaled to a different resolution than what was advertised, and as a result, games couldn't properly integer scale. Because ideally, a 960p display would have perfectly scaled to 2x when it comes to most 4x3 consoles. And Retroid really messed up. I don't want to minimize this. You know, Retroid doesn't even send me handhelds. Before you say, Vlad, you're a sellout, you're defending Retroid, I have no connection with Retroid. I want to put this out there. And even though I don't have any connection with them, I still want to properly offer some perspective to this. You see, Retroid, as most companies in this niche, we tend to forget they are more a bunch of dudes, of people, than actual companies. They are not Samsung, they are not Asus, they are not Apple, they are not big. They are a bunch of dudes taking former phone parts or old phones or old phone components which were rotting in a what's the word in English, which were rotting in a storage unit somewhere, and they Frankenstein all these components, these former phone components, into a handheld shell. That's why we have the Retroid Mini, Retroid Pocket 5, the Anbernic RG406H, all of them, everything that has Android. Let's get one thing straight. Used to be a former phone in a past life or was designed to be a phone. That's why all of these handhelds have very old SoCs. So, because, for example, the Retroid Pocket Mini, since we're talking about this, has the Snapdragon 865. That SoC was released in December of 2019. So we're not talking about big companies. These companies, all of them, they source these components from wherever they can find them, from a supplier that then sells stock, from a phone manufacturer that then produce enough units and they bought more components because they expected more sales. They find them wherever. And these screens, in my opinion, I don't think Retroid knew that they had this defect. Because think about it, my dear nerd, let's use, our melons. They are the first group to not want to mess something like this up. They make more money if they gather goodwill with the community. They make more money if people go like, people will hate me for this, like mindless wallet sheep, praising, yay, they make the best handhelds. And then they become slowly a dominant player in this niche of ours. Now, I want you to, again, view things from a macro perspective. We don't have many players. There's Anbernic, there's Retroid in terms of size. There's arguably, who the heck is next? Paukidi, I guess. Maybe Mio. Now we have some other players that are coming along quite nicely, like Magic X, which I really need to give them some attention and I need to start covering their stuff as well. And Dream UI is also coming quite ahead than where they were in the past with their brick. But my point is, all of these companies, even the giant Amberneck, they are ants if we put them at a scale with the big companies. So they are at the mercy of the components that they can source. That's my point. And I'm not saying, this is very important, I'm not saying that them messing this up was something that was excusable. No, you advertise a thing, it's normal for the expectation to be that that thing is according to spec. I'm of course talking about the display and the resolution that it was supposed to have. Technically, as far as I understand, it still has the resolution actually, it's just that the hardware chip of the display scales that image to 928p, if I remember correctly. As far as I know, those screens were meant to be for a digital frame or something like that. I'm not even sure. I read this from other places. Don't take this as fact. This is just basically a live conversation that we're having. But my point, all of this up until now was context. There was no justification for the reaction that this community had. For example, and I want to emphasize this, look, this is the definition of a very, very bad response that Retroid could have had. In this case, a lot of people, justifiably so, were upset over the fact that they ordered something. A lot of people in this community probably wanted to integer scale. This messed up their plans. They wanted a refund. All fine and dandy. I can also understand the Retroid that they were afraid they would open the floodgates and a lot of people would take advantage of this to get their money back. I also understand Retroid as a company. But putting all these conditions with 200 units and only 6 days, actually it was supposed to be 7, but no, it's actually 7 because 8th of March was also included. There are just too many conditions here. This is not the definition of a good response. What they should have done, ideally, was either to have taken the heat on this, or they should have said something like, if you order the Retroid Mini from us, here's a $40 coupon on your next order, which will probably be the flip because you want that as well. That would have, maybe they would have lost some goodwill from the people, but not nearly as much. So I'm not saying Retroid doesn't have faults here, it's their fault. Okay, when you source a screen, it's your fault to make sure that whatever you source is to spec with what you want it to be, and you need to check it during the QA process to make sure, to make freaking sure that it's exactly what you promised it to be. You can't have slip ups like this, even though it's expected. That's my point. It's expected. They are a small company. It's like how I imagine me and 20 of my friends grouping together to make a handheld project. But we would have the financing of quite a few other handhelds that sold fairly well in the past. But they are not, in spirit, a big company. And I'm not making excuses for them. Listen further. The thing is that after this, people jumped on. Wait a second. On Chris. Chris was the social media manager of Retroid. He was the guy that people would talk to. He also handled the Retroid Discord server, and he was an overall good guy. What did the people do, you might ask? Well, they doxed him. Somebody found his real address. They found his real, address, family members, whatever, and they released that. We are a retro community. We are a niche within a niche. We are a family. God flipping heck it. I don't even want to make this sound dramatic, but demographically speaking, we are over 30-year-olds. Okay, we are this community and this channel is mostly over 30 and up until 80 or 60 or somewhere around there. My point is, there's a certain layer of nuance and maturity that we should have along with our reactions to granted faults like these. The company messed up, but it wasn't a big mess up. The Retroid Mini is still usable. This is as usable as I expected it to be when I got it. You can tell by how greasy the screen is that this guy has gotten a lot of action. And my point with this is that it's not inherently a broken device after this thing. And doxing someone is always bad. This is why we can't have nice things, because there is an overlap over the retro community, which should be better than the overall Android community, and how people in the Android community reacted as well with emulator developers. That's why, fun fact, I don't think you know this, but emulator developers, they fear making emulators for Android because the community is simply toxic. It's simply entitled. They crave and they demand a lot of stuff, and they go nuts when, let's say, now uh, we have an alpha of a PS3 emulator on Android. There are people who ask, when do I get to play God of War 3 on my Snapdragon 680? You can't. You can't be this entitled. You can't dox. You can't make threats and stuff like this. You simply can't. And then you can't expect for us to have amazing people. I'm not just talking about Retroid, no, I'm talking generally, do amazing things for us. That's kind of the point. Chris, he quit. He's no longer the social media manager of Retroid. I didn't even know him. Again, I need to emphasize this because people will say Retroid bought me or blah blah blah. Retroid isn't even sending me devices. I never collaborated with Retroid. Retroid, if you want, maybe, I'm open to it. But this whole video has nothing to do with that. This whole video has to do with freaking maturity. I'm not scolding you right now, by the way. However, I am disappointed. I am very disappointed. Not in you, my dear nerds, which are watching me. I know you guys are okay. I'm not saying this to, be all mellow, to not upset people. I suspect that people who gathered around this channel, they are like-minded with me, and they probably agree with me on this. But there's a very small layer of people in this community which ruin things for all of us. For example, Russ. You know Russ. Russ from Retro Game Corps, the king that we all follow in this niche of ours. He made a video addressing the Retroid Pocket Mini scaling issue, and he made, I dare say, one of the best videos of all. A video that's way better than my previous video, and I'm not ashamed to say it. My video was more of a rant. His video really went into detail, into the nitty-gritty of it. What do people do? I'll give you a guess. They started harassing Russ. They started, basically throwing negative comments at him, attacking him. Russ as well. Why? I have no freaking idea. I was actually sad reading this. Hey everyone, just letting you know. Actually, wait, I want to plaster my face here as well. Just letting you know that I will be offline today. I hate to admit it, but this Retroid stuff is getting to me too. There should be a limit to how many accusatory Reddit comments a person should have to read in a single day. Feel free to ping me with any questions, but I won't address them until tomorrow. Translation. he was attacked by our fellow community members because he dared say things which very angry people, very emotional angry people didn't handle in that moment. We as a community, and I don't care how much heat this puts on me, as a community, we should be mature enough and emotionally in control enough to be able to handle opinions that are different than our own. That's kind of the thing about this community. That's how we develop. This shouldn't be an echo chamber. I shouldn't be able to say the sky is green and then get mad at you when you say, Vlad, the sky is not green. That's kind of the point of this. You know, if you are angry, are you really angry at the Retroid Mini thing? Or are you angry at how Retroid responded? Either way, yeah, it's justified to be frustrated with this. You know, but it's also normal to realize, like I said, Retroid, as a company, they lose money when they mess things up like this. They didn't try to screw anyone out of their money because it makes no sense. By definition, you make money when people willingly have a good image of you and they buy your products. So, this whole conspiracy that they took money from people, this doesn't make sense. And when it comes to the return period, when it comes to the fact that they capped the returns at the first 200 orders, yeah, this wasn't a good response. I don't know what Retroid was thinking here, but this is a bad company response. Okay, this shouldn't be enough for people to sharpen their pitchforks, turn on their torches. Can I even say this on YouTube? I am joking, I am paraphrasing. It's a metaphor. My point is, anger has no place in a situation like this. Dissatisfaction, yes. Upsetness, yes. Not wanting to buy Retroid products, okay. That yes to that as well. But from that to doxing or to attacking content creators which try to explain the situation in a calm and secure manner, no, actually, no. And if you think all of this is justified, then please, I am literally begging you, don't follow this channel anymore. If you're so angry, and if you think going after Chris from Retroid, personally going after him with the whole doxing was justified, then you're wrong. And I don't want a community with people like that. I want a mature community. People who can enjoy this hobby. Retro handhelds, my dear nerds, I shouldn't have to remind you, they are toys. Toys that we love. I spend more than half of my free time in this hobby, playing with them in my free time, reading up on stuff to make new videos for you. I am immersed, I am marinated in this hobby. But at the end of the day, it's a pleasure hobby. It's something that we, how should I put this? It's a leisure activity that we have in our busy lives. This is leisure. People shouldn't get so angry that they threaten or they jump at, content creators or social media managers or even the company itself. No, upsetness justified. Angry reactions not justified. And I guess the point of my video is that I personally, and this is gonna blow up in my face, I'm convinced, this video, but I truly expect more from this community. I am disappointed. Not in you, my dear nerd, who's watching this, not in the people that follow this channel. I read every comment. I kind of get an imprint that you guys are okay. But as I said before, I don't want to repeat myself. I think there are layers and layers and layers in this overarching umbrella term that we call the retro community or retro emulation community. And the very angry, loud ones, they ruin the thing for everyone. Now, I don't want to again overlap with the Android community, but I think there's a bit of an overlap there. This kind of behavior, this is why we don't have a properly maintained PS2 emulator anymore. Of course, it's not the fault of the retro community. I'm just saying anger like this, lashing out at creators, at companies, at social media managers, at whatever, at developers, they can simply, you know, say at one point that it's not worth it. What everybody should feel in this hobby is pleasure. It's, I don't want to be cheesy and say love, but they should feel happiness here. They should feel the dopamine that nostalgia gives all of us. That's the point of this. And I can guarantee that fewer people are happy in this hobby of ours than they were yesterday. And this is downright tragic. As a community, we became just a bit more toxic than we were a few days ago. Ay, but my nerds, you know, I'm really curious. If you like this type of video, let me know. I'm still gonna do retro handhelds. I'm still gonna do retro handheld videos, I mean. But yeah, I really wanted us to talk about this. I always want to make videos on what I think is right. And this conversation needed to happen. I'm not scared of a public fallout or anything. This is my opinion. You can agree to it or you can disagree. We can still be friends either way. But, my dear nerd, if you watched up until the end, like always, don't forget that I love you. Because you're obviously one of the good ones.